Get details by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Hi, this is Jeff Robinson from Advanced Title. Whether selling your home on your own or through your local realtor, please give us a call at 824-8007 for all your title work needs.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome in to WTIM, your information station. My name's Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Thanks so much to the sponsors that make these conversations possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. And Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. In the studio now, we have Brad Halbrook, Illinois State Representative of the 107th District. Mr. Halbrook, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Absolutely.
In fact, you nailed it there on the name and on the district number. You nailed it 100%. So thank you.
It makes for the start of a good show. When I mess that up, you never know what's going to happen. So thank you so much for being in the studio
You're
with
welcome.
us today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get right into it. Let's learn a little bit about you. I hear all about you. I see your signs out there, but I want to learn a little bit about you. Tell us about your experience and why you've been running for so long. It's been awesome.
Yeah. So currently the state representative 107, the districts changed a year ago last January. So parts of Macon County, parts of Christian County, part of Montgomery County, Effingham, and Cumberland, that's all new. The old district that I retained was Shelby and Moultrie County, but the others kind of either expanded or became completely new. So I've just been out trying to talk to people kind of about what we're doing, introducing myself. I've been working on that for several months, just talking about the conservative movement in the state of Illinois and how I'm part of that. We rolled out the Illinois Freedom Caucus. Will be 2 years this coming May. And it's been fun to be a part of that, to move that conservative ideology forward in the state of Illinois where it's desperately needed.
Okay. How long have you been a representative for the 102nd and 107th?
Yeah, so I served came in April of 2012, served 13 to 14, set out 2 years, and came back in 2017 and been there since 2017.
Wow, 2012, a long run there for you as state representative.
Yeah, it's just short of 10 years when you take out the 2-year break there in 15 and 16.
Okay, awesome. So you've been the incumbent, and what would you say to the listeners that want to see you return to this office?
Yeah, so it's about leadership and experience, and I think that's really important in today's environment in Springfield. Springfield is a complicated place, a lot of moving parts. It takes a tremendous amount of just background and understanding the context about where we're at and where we need to go. And so that's really important to understand the experience level that I bring and be able to work with others to hopefully stop the really bad stuff that happens every day and try to move good policy forward, which is very, very difficult. Just an example, last spring, we're a third of the chamber. It's 40 members, 78 is the supermajority party. So we're outnumbered 2-1, so we're a third of the chamber. But in the final analysis of the legislation to move forward, it was only 11% were Republican bills. So even though we're a third of the chamber, it's not very fair and equitable on the amount of legislation we're getting moved forward. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, lots to work through there, and lots of support that needs to be a lot of conversations that probably need to be had across the aisle.
Right.
Learning a little bit about that is Illinois representative of the 107th District, Brad Halbrook, right now, about his experience, and he is the incumbent, so his return to the office, his message to the listeners right there. Now let's talk a little bit about some of your positions of the day. We hear so many different positions of so many different topics out there, so whatever comes to your mind first, what do you want the listeners to know?
Right, so being the most conservative lifetime, I guess I have the lifetime conservative voting record as rated by the American Conservative Union, and that stands for basically life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness through private property ownership, a Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights. And so it's standing for those rights, standing in the gap for our constituents to protect them from a overreaching, tyrannical government that seems to be kind of on steroids, both in the state and in the nation. And so we just try to be able to implement those ideas every day. We've stood for life from the beginning to the end and everything in the middle. We've stood for the Second Amendment in multiple locations. We've stood for minor children and their families in some unique situations. And so, conservatism means those things, right? How can we have kind of the American dream, the American way of life, and keep government out of our lives. We understand, right? We're not anti-government. We're limited government. Some people say, well, big government, small government. We understand there's a cost of doing business in the state or anywhere, whether it's county, township, the nation. There's a cost of doing business, right? We want police, fire, roads, bridges, schools, things like that. We want some of those things. We want our borders protected and our nation protected. And so part of our goal, or all of our goal, is to protect people and to make sure that good policy gets implemented without being overburdensome to the people that are paying the freight on those things.
Sure. This topic can kind of be tied into what you said there, but we've talked a lot about budget with many people around the state. Your views on the Illinois budget?
Yeah, so the budget is the biggest in history. It has grown exponentially over the last few years since I've been there. I don't remember the first budget I came in on, but it may have been around $30 billion. Today, it's estimated to be $2.3 billion more than the previous year, just around $53 billion plus or minus, all in the wake of declining revenues. And it balances, if you will. The governor balances on $900 million worth of things that aren't legal yet. Okay. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And this is kind of the way they do things, is they spend the money and then they try to find it later. So that's where common sense is very void in the state of Illinois and the General Assembly. And we try to bring some common sense to the discussion.
Yeah. Then what is needed for that budget conversation? You bring up common sense there, and then what is that common sense that needs to be applied?
Yeah, so I think they need to take a hard look at their spending. I think there's cuts that can be made if an agency, a government has never instituted any cuts. I'm sure there's places to find some nickels and dimes to cut, and it may be nickels and dimes, but there's places to cut. Again, we see the bad policy making, we see the bad budgeting, and the outmigration is a direct result of that, right? Hundreds of people, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people have left the state. The census revealed the last go around, we lost a congressional district, which is 750,000 people. We lost. The estimate for 2030 is to lose at least one or two more congressional districts. That's a ton of people. That's 750,000 to 1.5 million people that may exit this state. And it's all about bad policy making and bad budgeting.
Okay. And in our last couple of minutes here in our first segment, you walk up to somebody's door, a constituent. What's your 60-second elevator pitch?
Yeah, so I just talk about being the most conservative member of the General Assembly. I introduce them to, myself as far as being the new district, that I've been their new rep for now 14 months in most of the district, and just talk about why it's important to have conservatism in the General Assembly. I talk about truth, logic, and common sense, and that's a very agreeable subject with about everybody.
Sure. Yeah. And as the incumbent, what makes you different from other candidates seeking your position?
Yeah, I think it's just the experience level. I got into politics just a few short years ago, was a private business owner, and had built a business over the last 20 years, spun it off to a longtime employee. So I know what it is to sign the front of the checks. I know what it is to make payroll and to pay the bills on time and all of that. I understand what that is. And so I think that experience level should be important to voters to say, yep, he understands what it's about.
Absolutely. And we're speaking right now with Brad Halbrick, Illinois State Representative of the 107th District. You've been in this game since 2012. You're coming up on 10 years here. How have things changed from 2012? I'm sure you could speak on so many things, right. But what comes to mind as a change from when you started?
Yeah, I think just the ideas that are being surfaced. I think our caucus, the Republican caucus, has got more conservative. I think the Democrat caucus has got more progressive. And so the legislation is moving forward. The other thing that's changed is the leadership on the Democrat sides in the House. And before, the prior speaker would keep some really far left legislation bottled up. He wouldn't let those things come out. But today, it just seems like anything kind of goes.
That's Brad Halbrick, the Illinois State Representative of the 107th District. It's time for us to take a break. It's been a great conversation so far. Before we take a break, thanks so much to the sponsors that make it possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. And Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. We'll be back right here on WTIM, your information station.
Your information station, WTIM.
I'm Jeff Grimmett, Assistant Vice President at People's Bank and Trust in Taylorville. People's Bank and Trust is proud to sponsor Taylorville Junior High School Students of the Month on all of the WTIM platforms.
Hi, I'm Callie Dugnosky, and I'm the 6th grade student of the month. My parents are Kevin Dugnosky, Jennifer Moore. School subjects I enjoy are art and science. This year at TJHS, I am involved in Scholastic Ball and Art Club. After high school, I'm considering being a race car driver as a career. And a fun fact about me is I raised a goose from an egg, and it flew away.
Congratulations to these students on this honor from People's Bank and Trust. We put people first every day at People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
There are a lot of inconsistencies when growing soybeans. The soil, the weather, the market. You need something you can count on, like Revitech fungicide from BASF. It consistently outyields other fungicides by up to 9.5 bushels per acre, consistently wins in on-farm head-to-head comparisons, and consistently makes for happy farmers. Revitech fungicide. Visit revxfields.com for full results. Always read and follow label directions. Yield data based on summary of 2019 through 2022 Revex field scale demonstration trials.
It's no secret that employers are having a difficult time hiring qualified personnel, whether full or part-time. The Miller Media Group wants to help you, the employer, to find the candidates you're looking for. That's why we've created IllinoisJobPost.com. That's IllinoisJobPost.com. This website is part of a broad radio and internet employment campaign available through the Miller Media Group. Contact your account manager or email sales@randyradio.com for more information. IllinoisJobPost.com is where we put the power of radio and the internet to attract prospective candidates.
If you're 40 and over, you'll recognize these artists by their first names. Frank, Dean, Sammy, Andy, Nat, Diana, Michael. Well, here's the big news. You can now hear Central Illinois' largest music library with over 3,500 songs on air and online at 965thechill.com. Tune in on the FM dial in Christian County and on your computer or smartphone. Hear these great artists and many more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 965thechill.com. The Pillars Event Center and co-owned Airbnb, both in Taylorville, will make your wedding, reception, or event one that everyone will remember. See pictures and get details on Taylorville's most beautiful event center by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Over 50 years and 3 generations of legacy serve you at Dale Williams Trucking in Fillmore. From agriculture to road construction hauling, they do it all. Find out how they can help you. Click their icon above the weather on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. I'm your host of the WTIM morning show, Tim Zalabak. Happy to be here with you all. Thanks so much to the sponsors that make it possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. We're speaking now with Representative Brad Halbrook, Illinois State Representative for the 107th District. And we learned about Representative Halbrook in that first half, some of the positions of the current day. And we're going to just backtrack a little bit and break down some of those ideas. You called Springfield a complicated place, and I'm sure many things are happening in that Capitol building that we have no idea what's going on. But why do you say that? What makes things difficult in these committee hearings and meetings?
Right. So there's 118 members in the House, 59 in the Senate. All come from all corners of the state, right? And 12.5 million people. And so there's a lot of varied ideas across from one end of the state, east to west, north to south. And so you have the kind of the Chicago city metropolitan, one of the largest cities in the country, to very rural parts of the state. So there's just a lot of diversity in ideas and how things get done and how we do things. And so that makes it a little bit complicated. And then the special interest kind of complicated a little bit more. And so there's just a lot of different moving parts. And I know that's kind of an overused cliche to some extent, but there is a lot of moving parts. And then you've got the constitutional officers and the governor that, maybe have a slightly different way of doing business. So it's just, and then just the whole process of trying to understand how, you draft legislation, you file it, you work it to get it assigned to committee, try to find co-sponsors, try to work it through committee, get it through your own chamber, And then it starts the process all over again in the Senate and vice versa. When Senate legislation comes over, we work that whole process through again. And then ultimately get good legislation to the governor's desk or try to defeat bad legislation. And I think what makes it really interesting is when the numbers in the General Assembly are so out of balance, it makes it very difficult to move good stuff and stop bad stuff. So I don't know if that covers all the complexities of Springfield, but I try to invite people to come up, and I want to invite your viewers or your listeners. Well, I guess you have viewers and listeners, and invite them to come up. And the comment most often I hear from people that have spent from a couple hours or a few hours or spent the day in Springfield watching session or watching committee hearings is they go away a changed person. They have no idea, for the most part, if they've not been to Springfield, they don't have a real good concept of what goes on in Springfield. And we had some constituents up the other day, and I talked to them later in the day, and I said, what was your thoughts? And they said the political lessons that they learned was like huge. I mean, there was all kinds of political lessons that was being played out right before their very eyes. And so it was a good experience for them, and they were happy they came. And so, again, it's always good to come to Springfield. I know it's maybe not always possible with schedule, but we invite people to come up for the day.
Sure. I think a lot of moving parts is a very appropriate term to use for. You said it could be overused, but I think just with all the people from the 118, from all these different walks of life, all corners of the state. You mentioned that. Does Illinois seem, and you don't have to speak for other states here, but it seems like Illinois in specifics has just a very wide range, like you said, of walks of lives here, from the city to the southern parts. And you got to have those conversations to find the common ground.
Right. And finding common ground is very difficult today. It just seems the polarization continues to set new levels of polarization. And that's really unfortunate that we can't find common ground. You would think that protecting taxpayers should be our number one job, but maybe that is for everybody. It's just their definition of protecting taxpayers is dramatically different from one end of the state, one side of the state to the other. That may be the case. I don't really know, but it is interesting to be able to navigate through all the different situations in Springfield.
You mentioned the Illinois Freedom Caucus a little bit earlier. I had questions about it. Well, what is that body? What does that
Right.
represent?
So the Illinois Freedom Caucus is part of a bigger network called the State Freedom Caucus Network that spun off of the House Freedom Caucus in Congress. We're now, I think the network has expanded into about a dozen states. Illinois, I believe, was the fifth one to roll out 2 years ago this coming May. We started out with 5 members. Today, there's 7 of us. And so it's just to move forward this idea of conservatism, fiscal responsibility, try to drive good policy making in a world that is very difficult to drive good policy making. Again, it's kind of back to that common sense that is kind of void in Springfield, truth, which is a little difficult to find. It seems like in politics, truth is the first casualty to go. And so I think it just kind of brings together a group of like-minded people around a set of core ideals and principles to support and to move that agenda forward.
Without a doubt. And that was Representative Brad Halbrook, Illinois State Representative of the 107th District we're speaking to right now. In our final 2 minutes here, any big positions that you want to get out to the listeners before we wrap up here? Yeah,
I think the thing that's really becoming more and more of an issue every day is the illegal immigration. And I think the solution is quite simple. The governor of our state and the mayor of Chicago needs to ask the president of the United States to implement the laws that are already in the books. They talk about the immigration system is broken, and it's not broken. It is on the books. There is a way to come to this country legally, whether it's a multi-year process or whether it's a temporary, a worker situation. There is a way to do that. Nothing's changed there. The former administration had put some executive orders in place to control the border because, when you look back in history, there's been approximately 300,000 to 400,000 illegal crossings every year. That's just kind of the way it's always been. But a few years ago, they spiked way up, nearly a million crossings. The former administration put some stuff in place that backed it way off. But then when the new administration, he basically rolled all those executive orders back. Immigration quadrupled 5 times in his first administration. And so it's putting pressure on the infrastructure, right? Housing, the services, the goods, and what have you that are provided to folks that are in need. It's putting financial pressure on. It's putting pressure on our local units of government at every place, our state governments, and even the federal government. So that's going to be a big deal.
Okay. Representative Halbrook, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're
to be
welcome.
here with us.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. That was Brad Halbrook, Illinois State Representative of the 107th District. We thank him for being on the air with us today. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you all for listening.
Your information